Okay guys, so in previous video we discussed class struggle. What is class struggle? And we conclude that class struggle is between the two classes, the upper class and the lower class. The upper class and lower class are in conflict, and this conflict is known as class struggle. And Marx says that history of all existing society is about class struggle. Further, Karl Marx has given us a pictorial image regarding the primitive society and the modern society. The primitive communism and modern communism. So Marx says the primitive communism, this is a past society. Then Marx says we have another present society and we have future. Marx says then primitive society was actually classless. This was classless society, this was stateless society, okay? So this was basically primitive communism. Primitive communism. Karl Marx says that with the passage of time, this classless and stateless society changed and a new class emerged in the past. This was the first class. A new class emerged, and that new class was basically slave society. Slave society. And Karl Marx says in a slave society we have two classes. We have masters and we have slaves. Karl Marx says a conflict arose between the two classes, masters and slaves. Masters and slaves. Okay, then Karl Marx further says a new class emerged, and there was actually feudal society, or you can say feudalism. So feudal society was based on lords and serfs. Okay, and there was a conflict between the two classes, the lords and serfs. They were in conflict with each other. Okay, so Karl Marx says in the past we have classless and stateless society. The new classes emerged with the passage of time, masters and slaves and lords and serfs. And Karl Marx says presently we have another class, and that is basically capitalist class, capitalism or capitalist society. Okay, in which Karl Marx says that in capitalist society we have capitalist, the rich class, okay, the owners, the have class, and we have another class, the workers. Okay, the workers. So Karl Marx says a conflict is between the two classes, the capitalist and the workers, and this conflict is basically class struggle. So that's why Karl Marx says that this history of all existing society is about class struggle. The history of all existing society is about class struggle. There is always a struggle between the two classes, the rich class and the poor class. They are in conflict with one another. Karl Marx has not given us a true picture of the future, but we can assume that future he is trying to say there will be a modern communism. There will be a modern communism. Okay? So, in modern communism, there will also be a stateless and classless society. A classless society. There will be equal distribution, and there will not be private property. There will not be private property. As in capitalism, we have private property. We own means of production. So now a question arises in mind that what's the difference between this society and this society? Because primitive society was also classless and stateless society, and there wasn't a private property. And this society is also stateless and classless society. Then what's the difference between these two societies? Either there isn't any difference or there is difference. So there is difference. We have past primitive society and we have future modern communism. So the difference is all about living standard. The difference is all about living standards. And living standards, number first and number second, technology. So Marx says that these two societies are different from one another. Either both are classless and stateless society, but the difference is all in living standard and regarding technology. So Marx says that first class, which was a primitive class, which was primitive society. So in primitive society, primitive was a classless society, classless society. Then a class emerged, and their class was a slave society, new society. So in slave society, means of production was basically land. Okay, and there were two classes, master and slaves. So they were in conflict with one another because masters captured the lands, and then lands were in the hands of masters. So they were using slaves as a worker. So that's why there was a slave society. Then a next society emerged, which was known as feudal society or feudalism. Okay, feudalism, as I discussed before. So in feudal society, means of production was also land. Okay, and there were two classes again, lords and serfs, as I discussed before. Lords and serfs, so a conflict war between the lords and serfs. And Marx says that presently we have capitalist class, and means of production for capitalists are factories. In factories we have capitalists and we have workers, and there is a conflict between the two classes, the capitalist and the workers. And Marx says that in modern we have future, we have communism. Okay, communism. And communism will also be classless and stateless society. There will not be private property. Private property will not be present. And as you can assume that primitive society was also a classless society, and future society will also be classless society. So then, what's the difference between these two societies? Either they are same or different. So they're different, as Marx says that the living standard and technology of both the classes are different from one another. So this was the difference between the primitive communism and a modern communism, that both are different regarding the living standard and the technology, as Marx has described that whole society is about class struggle. So societies are about class struggle because we have classes in society, slave society, feudal society, capitalist society, and there is a difference between the upper and lower class. So that's why Marx says that the history of all existing society is about class struggle.